darkness. 2 hours to midnight. Boy sat crouched in the box. As usual, his legs were going to sleep under him, tucked up in a tiny dark space hidden inside the cabinet. Above him he could hear Valerian going through his routine. Boy could only hear his voice as if from afar off and try to work out where he had got to. It wouldn't do to miss the cue. It wouldn't do at all. But Boy knew he didn't really need to worry. He used to try to count his way to it, but it always got lost somewhere, and anyway, there was no need. The cue was obvious enough. Boy tried to shift his weight ever so slightly, attempted to get some feeling back in his legs. It was no good. The box had been designed specifically for him, and Valerian had seen to it that there was no more than half an inch to spare in any direction. Suddenly, there was a solid thump on the top of the box, the first cue which meant, "Get ready, boy." Boy heard a noise from the audience, faintly. He couldn't see them, but he knew what the noise meant. It was a murmur of expectation. Valerian had just stepped onto the cabinet and was even now whipping the crowd into greater excitement as he outlined the extraordinary nature of the sight they were about to see. Boy even caught some of Valerian's words through the hefty oak panels of the cabinet. "Most miraculous. Feat of obscure—" Uh-oh, thought Boy. That means we're nearly there. "The man in two halves illusion." He readied himself, flexing his toes inside the boots, 3 sizes too big for him. Thump, thump. The cue. Boy went to stamp his legs out through the hinged flap at the end of the box, but was suddenly hit by a powerful cramp. His toes curled painfully under him, and he instantly felt sick. If he were to ruin it— Desperately, he tried to kick again. Still, the cramp ate up his legs like a snake biting, making him unable to move them. Thump, thump. Valerian was getting cross. Boy shuddered as thoughts of what he might do to him passed through his mind. He made one last effort and shoved again. At last his legs responded, and he stuck them out at the end of the box, wearing the huge boots, identical to the ones Valerian was wearing. Now, straightened out, Boy waved his legs a little. He knew this would be safe because he was supposed to wiggle them at this point to show they were real. They were supposed to be Valerian's, hence the matching boots. As Valerian had got into the front half of the box, Boy's legs had not appeared where they should have done, and the illusion must have been in danger. But Boy seemed to have got away with it. Now that his legs were sticking through the flap, the pain began to ease a bit. He got a little more air and could hear better too. Valerian shouted, "Behold!" Boy felt his box start to move stage left. He heard the audience gasp as they at last understood what was happening. "Look!" he heard someone cry. "He's gone in half!" It was true. From where the audience sat, they could see Valerian's head and shoulders projecting from one half of the box, while his legs moved away from him in the other part of the contraption. The single cabinet had become 2 boxes running on metal tracks. There was a clear space between the 2 parts of his body, and the crowd went wild. "It's true!" shouted a woman's voice somewhere near the front. Of course, it was not true. It was an illusion. Although Boy knew full well what the audience were thinking as the halves of Valerian's body went in opposite directions across the stage, he knew how it was done. He was, after all, in on the trick. Boy felt himself smile as the crowd began to applaud wildly. Then he remembered the fiasco with his legs, and the smile faded. What would Valerian say? Sober again, Boy prepared to pull himself back in at the right time. He could sense the automatic mechanism of the contraption beginning to turn the heavy brass cogs in reverse as the 2 halves of the box drew back together. He felt the boxes bump gently. His cue. He panicked and whipped his legs back inside just as Valerian stepped out of the other half of the device. Boy timed it perfectly, and now, cramped back in the box, breathed as deep a breath as he could. He felt the machine being trundled off stage. The stage was being cleared for the finale, while Valerian took the applause of the crowd. Off stage, Boy pushed the lid of the cabinet up with his head until there was enough space to lift it with his hands. "Out you come, then," said a stagehand. Boy took the man's hand gratefully, his legs still not working properly. He climbed out and stood for a moment in the wings, rubbing his sore calves. and watching as Valerian began his grand finale. The fairyland vanishing illusion.